didn't frequent last year either. Any
You you're having to sit back there. So firstly, what Sharon's saying is, realise that this is hot off the press and there will be changes. It's more showing your trajectory, sort of, this is pretty much a, what will we call it, a firm estimate, is it, Sharon? Is that fair to call you a fair estimate? Don't go back home and, it's not the Bible yet.
We're looking at 14.
Genesis, part 1.
Or
something. So Steve's going to run through a few of the idiosyncrasies of it.
Oh dear.
First thing to bear in mind is that the this was run overnight based on yesterday's work and some other minor adjustments we had to do that we could do first thing this morning. The A4 is telling you what the impacts of today's decisions were on the average rate, but it also tells you that you need to just bear that in mind when you're looking at quantums. That the rates examples will not reflect those quantums that are there, right? So what I mean by that is that they give you a good indicator, right? And then these other minor adjustments. Oh, sorry.
Who's talking?
No,
He's allowed to go out the door if you want.
I don't want to see that toy.
So why we're doing is just saying to you, just bear in mind that these adjustments need to be considered against the average rates in the rates examples. But if you always remember, was it 360,000 was 1%, 370,000 is 1%, then you can look at it and say, well, actually, how much of an impact is that? It's not a significant impact on the rates examples. But you need to be aware, and we needed to print out to you so that when we do a resolution, you can understand that it's going to be adjusted. The rates examples don't reflect that. So that's number one. This does show the consequences of your decisions, but also reflects the Sharon $7,430,000 of debt that we're using in year one to drop it down. Honestly, we have looked at the consequences of that because it's using a lot of debt, which we then have to pay back, and it does impact on your debt profiles moving out, your rate movements that are being presented, where we started out at average 20, urbans 12 or 13, are dropping down to a lot lower than what they were as a result. But we don't think we have an ability to model sufficiently anyway any changes to that particular debt profile that we had proposed, even if we wanted to. If you think that a movement of $1 million is more than 3% of rates, a movement of $2 million is 6% of rates. At the end of the day, we think that you've made the decisions previously around the 7.430. It is reflected in the decisions here. You can see the rates examples. Any other shift of that has material impacts on rural water, which is already a problem, and so we're not actually suggesting a shift. We're not exactly suggesting a shift in the debt that still sits at the 7.430, and we don't really have time to remodel that if we were going to do it. It does mean that you are using essentially a debt early. The picture does change if we have material changes to the capital program over the 10 years, like we talked about, right? So there is that, and we know from the issues with the rural water scheme and greenfields that there's substantial work going to be done around what we have to do with that. So yes, it's locking us to using the 7.43, but from a staff's perspective, having looked at it now and what our options were, we aren't suggesting ourselves that we are looking to change that at this point, simply because of the complexity of the modelling required to give you, those any changes, and also just the significance of it. What would $500,000 do? Well, it's actually 2%, or just on 2% of rates. So that's significant in that sense, but actually not from a debt perspective as a result. So what we're saying is we are suggesting that the examples stand, that you consider the examples relative to the changes that have occurred, that aren't showing up in it, and that they're not substantial. It'll be there, thereabouts. The average rates are as per as per this. Now, Jules, what were you telling me?
Sharon just asked us to remove the wheelie bin rate has been put in the rates examples, the changes in the wheelie bin rate, but it's just been done as a quick change rather than going through the full system. So those impacts are in the rates examples.
They're good. That's great. So that that big change that you would have to try to consider is already reflected in your rates examples, and reflected in the 14.04% in that sense. So the only other thing, and I forgot to mention it, is why we were having to relook at things very carefully is as a consequence of the reductions in revenue from your decisions, it has impacted once again, right, there's further reductions on that 10-year debt profile. And once again, right at the end of the 10 years, we are outside the 280% again. And so the suggestion for this one this time, right, so we're going back to another suggestion, is we simply look at the furthest, biggest capital program we've got in that 10-year program, which is the Milton wastewater plant, sitting at 39 mil, I think it was, with 4.5 million in year 9. And we simply shift that year by 1 year. So we keep the feasibility work, 4.5 mil, move that to year 10, and we save $35 million out of the capital program, and we meet the 280% debt. And whilst that wasn't my first suggestion when we were looking at what we need to do, it's the last thing we need to do to just cover the debt requirements, Your Worship. So we would just need another resolution specifically for that program to just shift it out by 1 year, if you agreed. If you agreed, then this is what it is. This is what it is, and that's what you'd be able to debate and go forward with, Your Worship and councillors. And we're under the 28.58. Sorry, we're under the 30% cap across the 10 years, so that's a good thing. That was a question that was asked.
Is it year 1 or is it just year 1?
That's just one. But we have looked at it across the 10 years. So we're covered there. And we won't forget that once you've done that and we look at this profile, that we will probably want, you'll probably want to have a resolution to change your rating cap as well, Your Worship. That's been problematic because it was 25% for 3 years. And looking at this, you could probably change that. And that would be the only other thing to do, Your Worship. So I'll leave it at that and we can take questions.
Firstly, thank you for that. Good effort, team. We're not quite at the finish line yet, but we're getting there. There was one thing, sort of an appeasement and 50-cent mixture. We've got 7,430,000 on debt to get us down to there. The only other component that we haven't touched on is, and I don't know the exact amount, but somewhere just short of $1 million, maybe still $1 million in the investment account. What would happen if we put the $1 million from the investment account over and took that 7.4 million down to 6.5 or something, so that it's long term, trying to do the very best. The investment account is getting spread right around the district. It's still there technically if we needed to drag it out, to put a bushfire out next year or whatever. But if debt is the issue, and God, to think the Clutha district doesn't end in 10 years' time, so we've got to get to year 11. We've got $1 million there. what would happen if we put that on to the 7.4 million down to 6.4? It's 1/7 of the way to doing the right thing.
Sorry, through you, Your Worship, if I could just confirm, Sharon, when is that debt scheduled to be paid back?
It's fully repaid in year 6.
And it's only applied to the water rates, water schemes, because that's how council decided to reduce the rates, because that's where all the rates increases had come from.
So if we put $1 million off it, would that mean that this $1,000 that quite rightly is burning the greenfield and everyone else, would that reduce the 1,000?
It would reduce it in the future, but you would be only applying it to water customers,
Yeah.
not the whole district.
Yeah, it's getting near the whole district. If so, that's 7.4 million. If we took $1 million over, it's going to benefit some, but not all. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep. So Sharon, what's the next year's profile for that debt with these rates increases?
Next year, we're borrowing another 4 million.
So that's the rates reduction component in the first 2 years, and then it gets paid back over years 4 to 6.
Yes.
So that's some of the water increases in years 4 to 6 is paying that $11 million back.
And while it's getting good to get it paid back, we still know by year 10, we might be paying back that component, but the overall's still going up. Okay, thoughts, questions?
Just carrying on from is that similar to what Councillor Barron was suggesting? Sounds
Now, he was reversing it, that we bring the rates down by it. I'm saying we bring the debt down by it. We're already at 14%. Possibly, have we achieved what we were trying to do and invest as your Hobson's LTP will ever allow you? But that's the tension discussion we're going to have now. Debt, rates, whatever. Ali.
I've got two things. One question was the rates cap, which we need to look at, but also what would be wrong with putting some of that investment interest that's left over, if not all, back into the investment account?
Well, technically, if you're putting it off this, the best thing to do with the best investment you can make is put it into your mortgage. If we put it off this and we have to draw
Depending on the
I
interest
disagree,
rate.
depends
No,
on
you
the
got
interest rate.
14.25.
Well, if you want to,
5.85.
then we're speculating with the ratepayers' money. And last year we got negative.
No. We lost the year before.
So we lost the ratepayers' money. The most secure and definite one is to go off the debt.
No. The profit that you've got there has come from investing,
Yeah,
right? And it's a risk. Investing is a risk.
yeah.
And I think over a 10-year period, I think it's been a good investment tool, isn't it? I haven't been here 10 years, but for the years it's been going, it seems like it's doing pretty well and well above what the debt's currently costing us. And do you think that the debt, what it's costing us for debt, if you think of the economy at the moment, it's looking like you're going to get cuts, interest rate cuts. I think we're going, inflation's getting under control. So I quite like the idea of putting it back in investment.
You've improved on it.
No matter how you look at it, you're guaranteed to make a saving if you pay it off debt. You're speculating on a good return if you invest it. And that's where we've always been, ever since we went net debt.
You look at your average long rate of return.
Yep.
Yeah.
For the investment service, not the short term.
Yep.
And the average long rate of return will always be.
Can I just make the point for clarification, Your Worship, councillors, if you don't resolve to spend the investment surplus, it sits there.
Yeah.
So you don't need a resolution for it to sit, you only need a resolution if you're going to spend it on something.
So that's why it's sitting in the investment account.
Councillor Herman.
A comment, an emergent comment and a question. If that's our attitude, then we would liquidate the Nico fund now and pay all the debt off as much as we could with it. If that was our attitude, I'm not saying it is, I agree with this. My question is how are we going to actually, what happens with this going out to the wider public today?
So Di's halfway through, and she's got it all written in her head.
Well, so from a personal level then, I mean, is this public information now? We're on live stream?
Yes.
Because there's a couple of councillors in here getting a bit of a beating where they live, and I wouldn't mind just actually having a couple of tools in the box to say some things this evening to one or two people. If that was okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so just to answer, you know, we as staff will have some caveats because we have to be careful of the fact that you're going to adopt something. There's stuff there that we're talking about in average. We're making sure that we've got to put it in. There's a resolution that we'll be talking about. We expect them to be minor adjustments and things like that. And so we as staff don't want to be in trouble with you on the 26th when we come back at 14.01 or 13.9 or 14.23 or 14.4. And so, you know, the resolution will reflect that. It doesn't stop, and you shouldn't stop, you know, agreeing to this if that's what you want to agree to, and it shouldn't stop you speaking about this as long as everybody understands that it still has to be finalised, but it's within those bounds, and that's what you're basically proving.
Initial indication.
Yeah. And effectively, we take our audit authorities from the sum of all the resolutions that are coming through, and that's why we are protected from that. We apply that through and that side of things. So it's not gospel, but you need an indicator because that's what you're going to give us the approval for, assuming, and that's how you can use it, your worship and council.
So by all means, as John said, this is now public information. It's there. Put the proviso that it's early indication, something. It's not rock solid. Di will be going out with the official statement tonight or something. And I think we've got to highlight the points. We've taken so much misinformation, had it shoved in our face because there was a vacuum of 24 hours and one press report. Pretty much stitched us. So I'm certainly pushing to get the information out there ahead of anyone else. Go out with as many of the good facts as we can, because actually, from the picture that we painted at the start, I'm happy with this. I'm not happy like if it was 6 months ago, but I'm happy. Kevin.
I'm confused about the discrepancy, how you get down to 0.86%. Is that a rise or what does 0.86% mean?
Less than 1% rate rise there. Yeah.
On the previous year.
Yeah.
Yes.
So 29-30, it's going to be. And we've had many years, like in recent times, we've come in many years with that's how we did the 4%, despite urban legend. Most years it was going to be under 4% quite naturally.
And we got hammered in the submissions by people saying you should never have just kept it at 4%. You should have been going up a wee bit and putting a wee bit into.
We can never rate for something that doesn't exist yet, and that's the bit they never gathered.
Okay, that's what I did.
Well, they never turned up submissions the year before saying that.
Yeah, I demand you put the rates up and put in a kitty that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, so you can't. You could borrow another two. The 280 million comes at the year 10. So next year 19.6, another 2 million would get that down to 15, and the next year 2 million of debt would get that down to 15.
Yep.
And then you can't get the next year instead of 5.131, put it at 15, which would start to pay back the debt. Yep. Can you do that or not?
The 19.6% includes 4 million, I think it is. 4 million of debt. So it's 7.43 year one, 4 point something in year two. That's the 11 million we needed to deal with the original 40% shock. And thereafter we're starting to pay it back. So it already reflects some aspects of that.
So remember, the first 2 years are manipulated through debt, but the other ones are, I suppose, actually manipulated as we pay debt back.
To be honest, in the past, where it's been a lot simpler calculations, and we were able to look at smoothing further out and tidying things up. That's what you describe it as, tidying things up. think we've just been concentrating on the 3 years, which has been the problem years, how we would manage the 3 years with the 40% shock. And, you know, we've got plenty of ability to still work the later years if we need to.
So have you averaged those 10 years? And if I go out tonight and someone's going crook, I say, well, over the next 10 years, the average is going to be 4.5% or the average. of those.
Dangerous doing that.
I know, but that'd be good.
But also, what you have to remember is, and you know, it's an important message for everybody, is this, the percentages is only one aspect. The dollar movement is the problem. Because it's the dollar movement, and we've seen it with the unit rates for water, rural, it's the dollar movement in the later years that have these ridiculous amounts that says, are we really going to pay that much rates? And that's even, councillor, with the low movements in later years, percentage-wise. So, you know, it hides almost what we're still saying, the unsustainable nature of the actual dollar rate movement is what shows up when you see the dollar rates over the period. It's unsustainable. So, yes, you're right, and you can certainly use that, but we should be still highlighting, messaging the fact that, you know, the dollar rates are the unsustainable nature.
7.6 if you want to know, over 10 years.
Is that what it is?
No, that's
I
what
got 7.4, but yeah.
here at school.
Dave.
Yeah, just for the rates examples, just an explanation. I think I might have been told before. I don't remember. So I've got rural dairy 1 and rural dairy 2, 2 UHCs. I'm going to go to the beef and sheep and beefs 1 and 4. I'm just wondering why the beef 2 gets 4 UHCs.
Sharon's more than happy to answer that.
Yeah.
We know the answer.
Yeah.
Tell you, your worship, that's because these are actually specific properties. They are actually somebody's property out there. And
So they
that property with 4 will have 4 homes on it.
Yeah.
And the one with 2 will have 2.
Okay, that's cool. It's easy.
So because this started from, I went to Balclutha, I got the map so that we weren't going all Malcolm Terrace or something, high-end houses. I went right around the town and took 2 houses. Then I went to Tapanui and took 2 houses and got the average, because what we were getting was you could pretty much pick an example to match your, the variations on the capital value and the land value just meant that if you looked hard enough, you'd find an example to suit.
Right.
These are genuinely reflective of that is the average of your town, pretty much down to within $1 out to within. Yeah. But that was a few years ago we did it. Some of those rural ones might be getting a bit wobbly now. Also for new councillors, you'll be aware, while we're talking 14.9 or something, if you actually look at the difference between the rural and the urban, urban's average is what, Sharon? Do we do an urban average and a rural average? You can pretty much work it out for yourselves. Because there's definitely a difference, so you'll always get that. And then rural's got their water on top of it. What else questions, team? Do we go back and start chugging through a couple more of these and we're done?
Yep.
Rates cap.
Who?
Yes.
Rates cap.
So, I mean, so firstly, Your Worship, we might, I don't know if we've exhausted the questions,
Yeah.
what we might ask for in terms of the resolution is approving, so, you know, looking at resolution number 6.
Got them, haven't I? Oh, those ones are like little whip paper.
I mean, I think we haven't helped ourselves on these ones, but I think we might have to make one up here. I'll try and go slowly for
What page again?
that would
That's
be
the wee bit right at the start. I think.
53.
I'll rip it out.
So it's a 10-year plan. So we do want to approve the 10-year rate increases. And so what I would like to work off is the tabled rates increases for the 10 years. That starts with 14.04%. And that council approves the tabled 10-year LTP 24.34. No, I'm making it up, Lisa.
So that's quite simple what we're doing, we're just approving that, and we know that it's not set in concrete.
I haven't, can you read back what I said before?
The council approves the table for 10-year LTP 2024-34.
Overall rates increases. Subject to minor adjustments to be made by council at their meeting on 26th of July 2024. We'll leave it at that for that resolution.
So will we do that now? We'll do that now. So what we're doing, team, is as best as Sharon and the team can get it, those are the figures leading out. It's given us, it's not concrete, but it's certainly getting firm. It's a legal requirement that we do this, so we've got to do a vote. I'm happy to move it if someone's happy to
Just a
second.
clarification, you're on page 53,
Yes.
right, and you're doing the second one down, you're doing number 5?
They created another.
I looked at resolutions 4, 5 and 6 and realised I really wasn't going to be able to use any of them, and suggested a new one which Julie just read out. She can read out again.
Okay, it's got the wrong dates on it, isn't it? Yeah.
So those other ones will come out.
Yes, that's right, Julie. We're just going to start again.
Thank you.
You want that read out again? You working?
So, yeah, let's have it again, Julie. So we're not going off this specifically, but that's the guts of it.
The council approves the table 10-year LTP 2024-34 overall rates increases subject to minor adjustments to be made by council at their meeting on 26 July 2024.
So see that line, those lines along there? The team over the next 10 days or whatever are going to be getting it right down. We come back on, what is it, the 25th or 4th or something like that. And on that day, we're nailing it down. But that's pretty much the guts of it. I'm happy to move that if someone's happy to second it. Councillor Ludeman's happy to second it. Are we comfortable with where we're going with this? So all those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye.
Just some tidy ups. Perhaps we should say that council notes the tabled overall rates for the 24-34 LTP meets the 30% cap in accordance with section 21 of the Local Government Rating Act.
So once again, that's a legal requirement. We have to have 30% or below. What is it at, Sharon? Do we have a UAGC? 28.
Yeah, 28.5.
Oh, we've got a bit of wiggle room there. Right. So legally, we have to be under 30%. We're at 28 point whatever. There's not too much. Once again, Hobson's choices. We put our hands up here. Is someone prepared to move that? Councillor Ludeman's prepared to move it. Councillor Herbert's going to second it. Any discussion? All those in favour, say aye. Those against?
The third thing, Your Worship, would be the rating cap, and I would be suggesting, before I put a resolution, just for your discussion, I'd be suggesting 20%. I mean, well, if you took 3 years, you'd have to deal with the 20% for year 2. So the current, you'll remember the current rating cap sits at 25 for 3 years and then 10%. I understand it. You've got the 14, 19 and the 17, which suggests really that you probably need to be looking at 20% for the first 3 years as a suggestion, and because of the 8% in that other year that you sit at 10% for the subsequent years. Would that make sense?
Councillor Herbert.
Do we have to do anything? Because the reason I say that, just playing devil's advocate, is because it caused that much confusion for a start off. I'm hesitant to do anything. Going out with this is gonna give factual information of where we're actually at, not a hypothetical. And, because it caused an absolute uproar.
Well,
Well,
We
there's no
could
reason we
leave
can't
it-
leave it 25.
I suggest, could we leave it till the 4th? And we do the rate cap on the 24th, and by then we've been able to get the correct information. in.
No, the problem, Your Worship, is we've got to get it through audit.
Yeah.
So, and we could certainly leave it at 25 and the 10, councillor, but you would have to resolve to leave it because you've got to make a decision, unfortunately, because you've gone out for consultation that includes a rating cap of 25. And there's a requirement to make, to resolve a rating cap, unfortunately. And that, so that's the conundrum. I would suspect that you would be better off not resolving to keep it at 25 and 10. You'd still be better to resolve it, to drop it to 20 and 10. That's my suggestion.
Councillor Mulwell.
More confusion.
I'm actually happy to move that, we adopt that to the 20% rate for 3 years, 10% for the following 6 years.
7.
Makes sense. I think it shows, people have heard 25% and jumped up and down. It shows at least we've put a lot of rigour into this process, and we are working to get it down as low as possible.
Second, Councillor
It's not-
Catherwood.
Sorry, I should say it's not a target to aim for, it's a target to be well under.
It's just something we have to do, isn't it? And I think maybe we took it a wee bit lightly last time, knowing fine well the limited impact that a rating cap has when you're up that high. And we wore it around our face, so we'll be a wee bit more attentive.
So will we get to vote on a rate cap again next year, then your plan?
It's a long-term plan issue, I believe, rather than an annual plan issue.
Yeah, because I'll just come back to as to where Councillor Herbert said in that, you made the comment about confusion. If we do get some bomb dropped on us in the next year, we're looking at 19.6%, just under 20. If we leave it at 25, then we've got a freeboard without this whole discussion coming again.
Yeah, the answer to that, through Your Worship, is that we've had a 4% rating cap before that we did breach in the previous year, went up 5.5, and we budgeted to breach it. You can breach the rating cap, you just have to set a rating cap, and as long as you do a resolution about it when you're budgeting. So there's just a requirement to have a cap, but you don't. Looking at it, I do understand 19.6, but you are entitled to resolve to breach a rating cap. This is just a 10-year plan.
Just you can just imagine that if we had to say 21.2 next year, and we'd shifted it down to 20, and
I think 20 and 10 is, we bow wave a bit, so that's 17 going into the 5, or maybe even the 5 going to the 8. We need a 10. We've got to pick something, and I'm happy with 20 and 10. Have we got anyone to the counter before we give her a test? To speak on them. So we'll put the vote on. All those in favour, please raise your hands and say aye. Those against.
Okay. Next thing I can think of, I'll just ask the question. I assume there is no resolution in relation to the investment surplus.
Other than we confirm the amount.
No, you don't have to, Your Worship. I'm just saying that I just want to make sure there's an opportunity gone. Therefore, we'll move to the next item.
So before we do, I possibly missed how much is left that we haven't spent from the investment surplus.
1,053,000.
Is there, let's just throw it out there, is there a leeway to offset the UAGC by a percentage, by 1% or something like that? Is there any appetite to do that this time? I realise the problems that can involve in following years as well when it makes the increase look higher, but we're putting $800,000 towards that. So it's just throwing it out there.
Yep. So councillor Barron, that would align with what you said at the start of 2 days ago. Councillor McAtammany followed by Herbert.
Okay, I might have missed it. We've already confirmed that we're putting 800,000 in.
From years ago.
It's already taken.
Oh, that's a lot.
That was out already.
Unless you changed it otherwise.
Councillor Herbert.
I wouldn't be in favour of that. We talked about that yesterday. It creates a vacuum that it's hard to get out of. It's an addiction almost doing that. For what we've taken out of our investment surplus, 6.7 to catch up with a few years, I think it's a prudent thing to do to put it back into the fund.
We've got it down to the 15, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm probably there's part of me that would like to see, if we look at the submissions, pretty obvious it was one-way traffic. It's saying do everything you can. If we had to do everything we could this year, or even if we 50% mixed it and did 500,000 this year and put 500,000 to the more meaty next year, then we've genuinely done it. But the other part of me is I'm now looking at next year and going, it was so good to have that investment account that fair performed this year. We can't guarantee that, but we can guarantee that million's still there. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Even if our investment return stays the same, we're going to get less because our principal's there. So that's what we're trying to do. We've got to get that principal back up.
No, there wasn't. It was just. So if there's no desire to move that forward. The next question I'd say to Sharon, is there any other, I know we're still going to do the rates subsidy a little bit. We're going to do the water rates next, but is there any other statutory resolutions I need to think about, Sharon? Have we covered what we want to cover? Okay, cool. So the next thing, Your Worship, would be to go to my suggestion as we go to the rural water scheme rates, which was page 86, which we need to resolve. So what we have done doesn't change these rates. That's right, Jules. So the rates are there, and over to you, Your Worship.
So if we look at this, each water scheme has already had a look at this. We're just acknowledging that from that process and from the cost, obviously, this is what's happened. So I'm quite happy to take them all as one. Technically, for what we're voting on, is that what the guys wanted? Is that what we're doing? It is a one. We could discuss till the cows come home, but literally they're each rate. But that's for the water scheme to discuss with us, not for us to discuss with ourselves. So
There's one missing rate, and that's the Greenfield rate.
Which I thought we resolved. Or do we?
Do we resolve that in the Greenfield support?
Thought we had.
We can get that checked, but we can still resolve all these, and we'll just confirm that one or not.
No, I take it back. We didn't resolve that rate, so we would need to add a resolution to resolve that rate. You only approved the additional capital, not the actual water rate.
can you give us a number 10, please,
Can I
Jules?
put a number?
Yeah. Don't make it.
So we'll give you what it should be, and then you can still debate things.
Yep.
So Jules is just looking it up.
So the rate that was approved, that adopted at the water scheme meetings was 664
Plus GST.
plus GST, the Greenfield water rate for next year.
So Julie's just going to write that in. That's number 10.
Okay, Cruz, so I'm still quite happy to take the whole lot as one, so that would be all 10 recommendations as one. Is someone prepared to move that?
I'll move with a comment, Your Worship, and it's just along the lines of future communications with Wellington. If you look through all these things, they're all compliance related with these treatment plants. This is what's driving our rural water scheme costs. I know we all know that, but somewhere along the line, we've actually got to push back.
I had over an hour on the phone last night with MP Mooney, down to about 10:30 at night. He's probably still his ear will be ringing just to try and get that exact point over. So we're doing it, John, and that's so frustrating when the public go, You need to
But-
talk
but
to the
my point,
MP.
once you've spent the money, no one's going to come over the hill and save you. If we go and spend another $5 million at Greenfield and something changes, no one's going to come over the hill and say, oh, well, here's $5 million, thanks for that. We're continually locking and loading ourselves. I just feel it's just getting out of control, and it's all compliance related.
We're front loaded in the 3 years. The 3 years is pretty much going to do the main bit of the damage. And as I'm saying to Joe,
It doesn't stop.
but if you fix it in year 4, it won't solve much for us. We've already done most of the damage.
Just one reply to Councillor Herbert there. With the Greenfield scheme and now with Lawrence's issues with their water supply, a huge amount of that scheme was to add a more reliable quantity of water to those schemes, and now we've got Lawrence Town fully reliant on it for its supply. The actual treatment plant costs of the Greenfield project probably only amounts to about 15%. The rest is the piping and the pump.
The bulk of that's because of your water quality coming out.
One of the issues that was originally supported was always quantity as well. Unfortunately, the pipe and the
Don't defend till they're
pump stations,
Don't defend them.
yeah, being a big part of it.
Okay, we've got 10 recommendations. I think you moved it, didn't you, John? But I didn't get a second. There was that, right? Right, need a second to Councillor McCrosty. Any further discussion?
Sorry.
Yep.
Just, so those schemes, two rural water schemes that are coming from the Greenfield? Three, sorry. We've got Tuapeka, what are they? Tuapeka?
Balmoral 1, Balmoral 2 and the Tuapeka scheme.
So they come on, well, the Greenfields comes online Feb, we'll say January, beginning of January this year, next year. So at the moment, those 3 schemes are still independent schemes, but we're rating them on the Greenfield rate as of beginning of July this year, aren't we?
And we've backed that up by, there's a report going to council to disestablish the old schemes and establish the new scheme.
So my concern, and perhaps it's not it's irrelevant, but they're not actually getting Greenfield service yet. We're charging them something they're not getting, and we had a problem with this with Ben Haar some years ago. Just making sure we're utterly completely legal on this at the moment.
We've had, through you, Your Worship, this was discussed when we were doing the draft LTP, and as the budget projections are that as of the end of this year, we will have spent about $18 million on the Greenfield scheme. So the way we fund that, we have to start loan funding the repayments for that next financial year. So that was the reason for doing that. And we were effectively creating the new Greenfield rate through the LTP process.
As long as we're completely compliant with our rating obligations, I'm happy with that.
Well, what we've effectively done though is no different to creating an urban water bucket from individual schemes and that. But the issue is you have to create it through the long-term plan process and having done the consultation and things like that. But it's perfectly legal to, like what you'd be looking at is saying the Greenfields scheme rate is including all the operating costs and the current costs of the 3 existing schemes that have been disestablished, including the loan funding starting of the Greenfields cost, all in one bucket under one scheme. So there's nothing inherently wrong with that. You just combine the schemes.
Can I just can I just think of something?
Guys, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Don't forget your jacket, Brent. Thank you for your efforts over the last few months. Appreciate it. So, can we just think of something here, because we're going to get hit with this from Greenfield Board. A month ago, we had a $20 million project, and you just said we spent 18 million of it, Jules. So 18 million of it was all done, and the bit still out in the spiky end was 2 million. And we've had a $5 million overrun. Was it only that 2 million segment that created the $5 million overrun? Because if we've spent 18 million.
Sorry, Your Worship, I wasn't. The projection by the end of June is that we will have spent about 18 million. So that was we were projecting for the end of the financial year.
Well, let's even say that, because that's in a few weeks' time. 17 million of the 20 million had already been spent. 17 million of the project. We had 3 million out, and now it's 8. So that meant that 3 million got blown out to 8. The other stuff had already been accounted for.
We had signalled at that stage and to the rural water scheme committees that there were going to be additional costs. So it wasn't just that proportion. It's a combination of a number of factors, including part of that work that was done within that 18 million costing $750,000 more, like the pipe contract.
Right. Where are we, team? Right, have we got anything more? Oh, we're going to move in a second. We did get a move in a second. We're doing the whole shooting box with Greenfield as well. Everyone happy with that? So, put to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Thank you.
Okay, Your Worship, the next one is page 459.
Okay, page 459, additional rates rebate. Sharon, you want to do this, or Steve does it, or?
Oh, well, Your Worship, you know me, always the proverbial trying to offer something for those that can't afford the rates. You've made some decisions, but now it's the appropriate time to discuss this, and you can make your decision.
Right,
we've done this before. You all know what the story is. I won't belabor it, and it's up to the council.
So firstly, let's move that we receive the report. I'll move that. Do I have a second? Councillor Ludeman, all those in favour? Aye. Those against? Thank you. Right, now specifically on the report, any questions for Steve or Sharon? Right, discussion. What's everyone's thoughts? Councillor Catholic.
We just recently supported a letter, was it, zones or whatever, rallying government to increase the rebate, is that correct?
Yeah.
Just the other day, that email. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
to address this situation.
I haven't got this officially, so don't string me on it, but I know my brother's statement of last week. There's been discussions, and it's actually that the LGNZ through the, here I'm getting vague, the LGNZ would set up a scheme so that you can put your rates on it. Now that's embryonic, and I'm only hearing that the pressure we're under is the same as everyone else. So where that's going with it, but it looks like there is some idea, because you don't get what the Mayor of Central Otago said for your rates. You get it for 20,000 or a big thing, as I took it, but for something like that incrementally. So there is other plans afoot, but it's embryonic. Councillor Barrett.
My comments on this are that it would be good, but if you do it, taking it back would be difficult. Therefore, you would have to put a time limit on it. And when we look at our rates and we look at the comments that people made, I believe it is necessary to help lessen the financial burden on people who are on a low fixed income, who are already struggling week to week. And so you would suggest you do it for the first 3 years if you were to do it. Everyone's in hardship, whether you're low income, high income, everyone's got increased costs. So you're taking out one part of the community and giving them a handout without looking at the other. And if you're just over the hardship line, you're going to say, hey, why didn't I get it? So I would suggest that we don't do it, but if we do it, it would be for a period of time.
Councillor Herbert.
Well, the motivation for this whole thing started when we were bouncing around that sort of 20-25%, wasn't it? And we've eased a lot of that sitting here today. So the New Zealand government scheme is still available at $750, isn't it?
I think it's gone up, threshold a little bit up as well.
So these people are getting some assistance, and I agree with Councillor Barron. I wouldn't be supporting it. I think it's once again it creates a vacuum when you start subsidies like this that you've got to keep up with it. There's still the subsidy available there, and the motivation for doing it is eased.
Councillor McCroskey.
It just says here, 51% of submissions are against it. Or 51.75, so,
So for me, submissions is only one small component of it. It's the credence to the argument, not the number of submissions. But it always comes down to me that wherever we draw the line, the person above it then has to be contributing. And that group there, we've just made it harder. I appreciate Steve for doing it, and it was an attempt, as John said, desperate times when holy hell, we're up there. But we've actually done the fiscally prudent steps of reducing down to. There's a few fish hooks in it, for sure, we know that. But what we were going to save here, we've done time and time again there. So, and also, I don't want it to load up. There's so many working families that you look at the wage, you think, well, they should be doing it. But then they've got 4 kids and they're no more doing it than flying the year. Councillor Volwheeler.
I'm happy to move that council will not provide an additional rebate.
Happy to second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Those against?
Final thing, Your Worship, would be to note that report number 37, approval of responses to submitters.
Oh, yeah.
Will be moved to the 20th of June council meeting.
Done.
If you resolve that.
Next Thursday.
And I'll just make the point that if we do resolve that, I know it's a tough ask, but if we could just ask councillors to make sure they go through it properly, and it would be helpful actually if you've got issues or questions to come back to us before the 20th, because that will also speed up time. You can imagine that potentially could take up a heck of a lot of council time in that afternoon if we can't work through them quickly. So I just ask that. We're happy to assist in the questions.
Councillor Baldwin.
I'm happy to move that we consider the responses at the June meeting. But in doing so, can I ask perhaps if we can get possibly an editable document, perhaps a Word document that we can actually track changes on to make it easy for staff to pick up what we do rather than trying to have to something easy that we can do.
It's all in Excel, it's in.
We'll have a look at that. Obviously, we won't be doing it today, but we'll have a look at what we can do for early Monday, if that's all right. Spreadsheet.
So the only other one I've got an asterisk. Oh, hold on.
So just, and I agree with, I've gone through a fair bit of it. Can I just ask what the ID number means on the left? Is that a page number? Because trying to reference back to the submitter, there's no name, there's nothing there. So the people that submitted from my area to follow what their submissions are, quite hard. So what does that ID number on the left mean?
It's the submission number.
Should be.
Which is not on anything we've got though. We've got
Social company.
Yes, they're on the.
Can we give a list of the submitters?
So those submissions under LTP, it's that number there.
Becky, can you help us?
Yeah, it's not the page number.
No, it's the number of.
The item.
We look on each report, right up the top on each submission, you've got a member ID, and it's that number.
So the LTP number, then there's, yeah, it's that number.
No, that's a page number.
No, that number there.
Smaller number.
It's neither. It's on each submission
on each social input page, you've got right on top of it.
Can we, Becky,
We'll
we
try and
send
try
out a
and
list?
look at that and I see he submitted.
We
so
can easily.
Can we send out a list of name and number and address? So if they want to refer to them, they can see the ones that are in the.
That'd be great, thank you.
Sorry. So I need a seconder. I better get that before we go too far. Can someone second that, councillor Herbert? Right, so we just pull it in and we'll get to the finish line. So we know what we're voting on, just the responses. They do come back, so please in the interim, as much as we love reading at the moment, we've got a bit more to do, so just have it. And please get back to staff as soon as we can, rather than don't come in on the morning and here's a whole lot of good ideas I've got. So we're gonna move in a second. Does anyone have any discussion?
Just a question, just looking at that, Becky, some of those ones I've just looked at don't have a number beside the member ID. It's I'm thinking it's the contribution number,
Just up above you.
which is the one at the very
It could
top.
be the inverse, yes, sorry.
Yeah, just to be-
Yeah. Oh, we'll do it for report.
Thank you.
Compiled.
Alex?
Just for ease, can we probably have them once they're tidied up, resent and perhaps put into the actual, a folder with all the agenda items for next week?
Okay.
Just, I'm being a bit lazy there.
What a
It
page.
would make it easier.
So I'm gonna move in a second though. Everyone happy? Put to the vote, all those in favour? Those against? Now, I'm just gonna, I did do an asterisk with Milton Wastewater Plant 40K. Did we have a resolution? I thought that was a resolution when I did that.
I asked George, I'm
I'm
sure we
moved it.
This,
Right, it's
well,
been done.
we just want to check that.
Julie.
Did we get a resolution when I was talking at the end there?
It was 40 million.
Yeah, I think someone said it. and I wrote it.
I'm sure there was a resolution to move it forward a year, push it down to yearly. What day is it?
That's what it was.
Friday.
Done.
Year is it?
Just checking.
2035.
That's a big rates increase.
Excuse me, Tim, just while Julie's looking at that, firstly, can I thank staff and please Steve down through the whole organisation, to the finance team, to the media, to Jules and the team, go through the organisation, please. And not only the fact that we appreciate the work that went into, we know fine well there's been a lot of pressure on staff, there's been the reverberations of a few different discussions. I'll silence that there, we need to do something.
Yeah,
We did do the 40K, we? Hold on, Jock, we're gonna do something.
Really?
Just
To do something?
Yeah, we just got to check. We don't think, unless you can remind us, Julie hasn't got the resolution for the Milton wastewater shifted out 1 year, but we did resolve it, didn't we?
I wrote it up there because I didn't think we had.
Okay, we had, okay. So we need a resolution, which is, did you find that?
Year 10 to poke out. so
Yeah,
that no one-
bring it down, yeah, no, we
The
didn't.
Milton wastewater treatment upgrade by 1 year.
So the project number was, just so we get it right, here we go. So, project number 402006, Milton wastewater treatment plant. 402006, Milton wastewater treatment plant. Move the project 1 year, defer the project by 1 year. That's the answer. Defer the project by 1 year. We'll address it.
Okay, so we know what we're doing, we're just pumping that out, put it down. I need a mover, councillor Barron, I need a seconder, councillor Catherwood. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Please note that councillor Wheeler was out. Getting back to where I was, staff, it means an awful lot to us for by crikey, it was good information we got. That was one of the, hold on Dane if I can please, that was one of the saving graces for the whole process was we got magnificent information. And when kerfuffle and irrelevance and misinformation was out there staining ahead of us, there was always that confidence that we could go back to the facts, and politically that meant a lot to us. Please pass on right through the organisation. We appreciate the pressure, not only the pressure of the workload, but the pressure of the acid coming on. We've got to acknowledge that. We thank you. To councillors, if we stuck to the process, we were going to get there. It hasn't been easy, and it ain't no way that it's perfect. But I would say we've done, in extraordinary hard circumstances, we've done the best thing we can by the ratepayers. So I'm proud of the effort that you've put in. I know that it's tested us as a unit, and I can still take 2 steps back and say, if we went out tonight, we'd have a beer and we'd enjoy each other's company. And that's the litmus test for a group that we were under pressure and we'll still be under pressure, but we'll do it together. So I thank you for that.
Your Worship, can I just caveat everything on the fact it's got to go to audit, including a hot review. So, we trust that we will get through. There may be some changes. We're not sure, but it's going through the whole audit process. And anything that happens will have to come to you on the 26th. But just remember, that still has to happen, which we'll get on to.
Right. Thank you once again, everyone. Really appreciate it. Go home and give your partners a cuddle. They've probably felt the acid as well, have they?